Okay, so we were just talking about different ways, that we might capture this empirically, right? Empirically, the word empirical, you guys are all sociology and public health majors. This is an upper division course, so shit, I hope you know what this word means. Empirical means that we can measure it, right? We can measure it, we can observe it. So if we're interested in this phenomenon, the question on the table is, how do we empirically, as social scientists, measure it? One way is what we just discussed, using this panel data. But another way to think about it might be qualitative data. Ask people, do interviews, interview people who have maybe had these experiences. But then Colton just brings up an interesting point, something like content analysis, right? Can't we do a content analysis of what people might be posting on social media to help us make sense of some of this stuff? That's very possible, it's plausible, right? Different approaches to thinking about the same central question. So I would say that for the students in the class, I would refer you to the ACE pyramid. It's in your book. You'll see a little pyramid. It'll be in the slides. And that's going to sort of conceptually walk you through what this process is. Because the pyramid starts at the very bottom, right, with the adverse experiences that children have, the bullying, and then walks you through what might happen cognitively, psychologically. And let's think about this. Let's think about young women who are bullied, right? Young women who are bullied as children. And then maybe that bullying transfers to a type of depression. Okay? So a mental health issue, depression, is affected by the bullying. But particularly with young women, that depression may tie into something that is behavioral. What might that be? So you start with young women, and I'm highlighting young women because empirically this is just more evident in the data, in the research. You start off with bullying, you get a little bit older, and based on the bullying, you fall into depression, and then that depression leads to certain types of behaviors.
Eating disorder?
How about eating disorders? Right? What were you thinking?
Oh, I was thinking promiscuity.
That's controversial stuff about
stripper syndrome.
Mike, be nice, be nice. I hope you didn't hear what he said. Just ignore him. But the question on the table is not the stripper syndrome. It is promiscuity. That evidence is really mixed, right? That evidence is mixed about exactly how promiscuity, sort of extroverted sexual behaviors play themselves out. But eating disorders, right? So maybe we have something like depression leads to a behavioral modification in the young woman where this leads to an eating disorder. Oh, and the eating disorder is then going to impact what?
Health.
Physical health, right? So now your physical well-being. Your physical well-being is impacted because at the beginning of the chain, right, the negative adolescent experience was bullying. And you can see where you can put a host, right? You can put a host of factors right here. And why we see consistently these patterns. Sexual abuse as a child leading to a host of outcomes, mental health outcomes in later life, including diminished physical functioning often. Because often people who are sexually abused, depression, drug use, abuse of alcohol, right? At-risk behaviors increase, which then impacts our physical well-being. So look for that pyramid. Try to make sense of that because I think it'll help you walk through this. Okay. Figure 3-4. I would like you to take a look at for this reason. Because Figure 3-4 wants to help assess how it is that there's a cycle which happens in terms of violent experiences and how they play themselves out. So this is what I want you to look for in Figure 3-4. Figure 3-4 is trying to get you to understand how traumatic experiences are actually quite gendered. So we take, the data looks at boys and girls who experience early traumatic experience in the form of physical abuse, sexual abuse, being battered by either parent And it goes all the way across that way. We're talking about figure 3.4, 3/4. What happens to you experiencing this type of abuse as a child and what you do later in life? And what tends to happen is that female victimization has a different outcome than male victimization, right? Female victimization tends to correlate much more with this type, right? With this type of negative social, psychological, physical outcome. For males, the victimization, what do you think that often translates to?
Like talking about, and we're talking about like physical abuse.
Yeah,
or,
yeah, and even sexual abuse.
So being a male being abused as a child leads to certain outcomes different from females?
Different from females.
Would be like,
I mean, I know you guys aren't looking at this book.
like substance abuse?
Perpetuating crime,
Oh.
perpetuating abuse, right?
Oh, yeah.
So males who are abused have higher likelihoods of perpetuating abuse later in life. Women suffer more of these types of outcomes. So I'm going to talk to you, the students in the class, about two last pieces of data that are presented in the book. You will see this one is table 3.1. And I want you to be relatively familiar with what's happening on that table. Because what's happening on that table, I don't want you to get a calculator. I don't want you to open SPSS, those of you that took methods. And I don't want you to panic. I would like you to have a sense of something that is called an odds ratio, right? An odds ratio, let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple. Don't get complicated. Don't get a calculator. An odds ratio is a number that is going to tell you either the increased or decreased probability of something happening, right? What are the odds that something is going to happen? If I roll dice enough times, there's a probability that it's going to roll 2 ones. That probability exists. There's an odds that something is going to happen. And the more I roll the dice, the odds are going to go up, right? What are the odds that your San Antonio Spurs are going to win another NBA championship? Without Durant and without the big guy.
Yeah, he's.
What happened today?
He's retiring.
As you are watching this video, my friends, today is a big day because Tim Duncan just retired today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the odds, I would suggest, are lower today that the Spurs are going to win an NBA championship than they were yesterday. Okay, odds. An odds ratio. If you look at that table, it's trying to get you to think about something. So I would like you to first look at table 3.1. And look at the row where it tells you physical abuse. And then I want you to see how that is associated with depression. And it...
You mean figure 3.4?
Table. It's
Okay,
a table. So
okay.
table 3.3-1.
Okay.
And you're going to see physical abuse, and it's associated with depression. And it has an odds ratio of 1.9. Easy does it, easy does it. Easy does it. Odds ratio, don't complicate it. Above 1 is a higher odds of something happening. Below 1 is a lower odds of something happening. So the association between physical abuse and depression is 1.9. That means people who experience childhood physical abuse are almost 2 times, 1.9, almost 2 times more likely to experience depression in adult life. I would like you to look at that. Look, I'll ask you a question right now, and you look at the table and see if you can answer it. What is the odds ratio that associates physical abuse as a child with alcoholism? You should know that. You see it? It's 1.9, right? Same figure. So people who experience physical abuse in early life have 2 times higher odds of experiencing alcoholism as adults. And then I would like you to find the big odds ratio on the table. There's a big one. You see the 5? Emotional abuse. Emotional abuse as a child. Any guesses? Emotional abuse increases the odds of attempted suicide. By how much? Yeah, I know, you don't have it in front of you.
4 times?
Yeah, damn close, my friend. 5 times, right? So look at that on the table. Emotional abuse, people who experience emotional abuse as children have 5 times higher odds of attempting suicide. Again, reinforcing this idea that what happens to us as children clearly carries through and impacts us later in the life course. Okay? So I think that's good enough for this discussion. It's a relatively short paragraph. I think this gives you some of the main ideas of what we're talking about here. Do you guys here have any questions, any closing comments? Everybody's good? Everybody's good to go? So keep that in mind. Careful to read through the chapter. Your assignment, commentary that you're going to post is going to be available today. Everything will be due on Friday. So watch the video. Feel free to send me emails, me or Kelsey, if you have any questions. Keep up the good work. Turn everything in by Friday, and I will also be by my phone if you have any calls to make during the office hours on the syllabus. Thanks. I'll talk to you guys later.